Hi, so I'm Luba, and I'm going to talk today about AI and recent art practice. Some of you may know me from the Creative AI Meetup, which I run on a monthly basis, and it's about promoting the latest research and thinking regarding AI in art, music, and design. And I also curate art exhibitions. I do some research about what happens in the business and the corporate and the startup space. And I also work as a seed investor at AI Seed. So if you have any exciting AI projects that you're looking for money for, you can talk to me. And so what I came to talk about today was the intersection of AI and art. And I think many of you are probably familiar with this. Who's seen this before? Yes. A few, but not everyone. So in my view, this is really what initiated the latest wave of creating art with machine learning. So this is DeepDream, and it came out in summer 2015 in one of the labs at Google in the US. And how it works is basically like this. So you can run an image of an artist, and this algorithm will find various dogs and pagodas and other animals in this artist. So it emphasizes the features in an image. And artists such as Tyka have created work around it, and also Daniel Ambrosi, who combined DeepDream with computational photography techniques. And then once this gets into the hands of the artists, they start thinking about the opposite of emphasizing features. So there's this artist called Constant Dullart who decided to reduce the features in an image. So this is, the original is on the left, and it's a demonstration that becomes much more blurred when it's on the right. And the same with Trump. So with this, the artist wanted to highlight his fears and visions of what constant surveillance is doing to us as a society, and how technology can be used to escape from it rather than the opposite, which is kind of what is normally happening. And then another interesting point for the mainstream was this artistic style transfer, which occurred in the autumn of 2015, and it came out of a lab from Leon Gattis, Alex Ecker, and Matthias Bethke in somewhere in Germany. And basically the way it works is you have a photo of a landscape or whatever you want to change, and then you run it through the style transfer, and it becomes pointillist or expressionist or some other way. You will probably have seen it from the Prisma app or somewhere else around, because it was very well adopted by the technical community. So this is some experiments of Gene with changing the way Mona Lisa is displayed in various Cubist, Impressionist and Pointillist styles. And then same with calligraphy, space, and Google Maps. So we don't have to limit ourselves to artistic styles. It can also be other types of visual medium. And moving on, there was an artist called Terence Broad who studied at Goldsmiths, and he developed a variational autoencoder that he trained on Blade Runner. And the variational autoencoder reconstructed the film Blade Runner frame by frame. This is kind of what it looks like. So the original film on the left and the reconstruction on the right. So as you can see, it's still somewhat blurry, but funny enough, the copyright infringement algorithms still detect it, and that's what our Terry got. So Warner Brothers came after him, and he had to figure out how to make sure that his artwork could still be displayed. And yeah, I think that might be a concern for the future, how you deal with copyright when you kind of work with this medium. And this algorithm from Loren Slack, from Terry Broad, was incorporated in some of the work by Loren Slack, who did this short film called Geomancer, which is about an AI that wants to become an artist. And yeah, it's been used for a section in the film to show how this satellite AI, the one seen on the left, who has kind of been floating around the orbit for a while in a futurized Singapore of 2050, how it decided that it wants to become an artist. It comes down to Earth and then it dreams a little bit about Singapore. So that's a shot from the satellite AI artist dreaming. And yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. So yeah, quite abstract, but you will see like the title of the film that's been reconstructed, and then the three, what is it called? I think there's a hotel, or there's this building with the three kind of columns or buildings. Yeah. And moving on, and kind of staying on the topic of artists and AI, there is this artist called Elves who wanted to think how two AI models could converse with each other. So one talking with images and the other with words. So this is what he did. And so yeah, on the left model is generating an image based on the caption on the right. And the right should be generating new caption based on the image on the left. So they're talking to each other in a way. And what normally happens is it gets stuck at some point and on a random topic, such as, I don't know, cats or maybe birds in this case, and it keeps going on and on. So yeah, that is quite a fun project. And recently there has been a lot of interest in using GANs, or generative adversarial networks, to create art. And a lot of art that's created with those is a little bit, yeah, so it is quite human-like, but you will notice that the placements of various features is somewhat odd. So there is only one eye and a weird mouth on the image on the left, and yeah, that's kind of sometimes what happens with this type of art. And to create these works, Mario Klingemann trained these GANs on contemporary female selfies and then black and white male portraits. So that's why they are looking quite effeminate and unique, in some ways questioning the nature of identity. And here's some more of his work. And this is the work of Tyka, who also used similar techniques to generate images of imaginary people. So yeah, that's kind of what he did. And Memo Acton, on the other hand, so what he did, oops, wait. Yeah, so so he developed a system that that was trained on a large data set of art images, and it started generating images in response to his face. So you can see it's kind of there are obvious shapes of his face that are done in kind of various somewhat artistic styles. You can, yeah, there is some response to his movement. Yeah. And there are other artists who look less at controlling the algorithm, but more controlling the data set. And one of these is Anna Ridler. So she made 300 drawings based on the film called Fall of the House of Usher. Oops. So this is a 1929 black and white film based on a book by Edgar Allan Poe. And this is what it looks like. In terms of Anna's animation, which she made from drawing 300 stills from the original film and then training one of the models to generate images in her style, which she then compiled to make this animation. So you can see it is quite blurry, but you can probably still recognize some of the shapes. And I know from speaking with Anna that she made a lot of these drawings sometimes at a quick pace, and at certain points she might have left out a certain item from the image because it was unimportant to her, or she drew the eyes or the nose the way she normally does. But then after having received the kind of the final images from the model, she realized a lot more about her own art practice, which she didn't know. So for example, that she draws eyes the same way as brows. And yeah, so this shows how using some of these tools in your artistic practice also helps you discover things you never expected. Yeah. And if we want to look at issues of recognition and classification, then the Tate IK Prize is one of the first examples from the contemporary art world. So the Tate run the IK Prize every year, and it's about using a new technology to promote the art of the British collection. And in 2016, I think, it was themed on AI, and the project that won it was recognition by the Italian design studio Fabrica. And so what that project does is it compares contemporary photojournalism, as seen on the left, to art from the Tate collection. And it tries to match the images in terms of composition, context, and some other attributes. In terms of some of the matches, they found that a car seat had a lot in common with a Henry Moore sculpture, or somebody sitting in front of a computer had a lot in common with a scholar from the past. And yeah, so those were some of the projects they had. And Tom White is, so he's a researcher in New Zealand, and he wanted to figure out what drawing he could make that would make a lot of models think that it belongs in a particular category, whereas it does not. So you can see that there is this drawing. I don't know if it looks like a sewing machine to you, but to me it doesn't. But it does look like a sewing machine to a lot of various, to Inception V3, ResNet 50, VGG 19, and the same with this electric fan. And there's another artist called Georgia Whatdaya who did some similar work on the topic of what really constitutes the character of an image. So what makes a scorpion a scorpion? So she ran her drawing on the left through these various kind of image classification and recognition models, and then she figured out which attributes were most important to the model, and you can see them on the right. So yeah, it shows our brains think somewhat differently from those of the machines. And I quite like this. So recommendation algorithms can help you figure out which other mountain to go to or which other beach. Yeah, which other slide, or I guess maybe not slide, but also McDonald's. So I think these are some artists playing around with the influence recommendation systems and technology have in our daily lives, to the extent that they almost stop us enjoying some of these kind of more outdoor and offline activities. So the artist Sebastian Schmick, he looked at how we classify data into the categories he chose as problem, solution, past, and the future. So this was, I think, an online experiment that ran at the Photographers Gallery sometime a couple of years ago, and he got the visitors to the website to classify which of these images they associated with the problem, the solution, and the past and the future. And these were the results that came out as a problem. So you can see there's anything from a child to a nuclear power station to, I don't know, groups of people. And the solution came out as birds, Arts Council England, and a few other things. The past looked like ice cream and black and white images. And the future were people with guns, children, and birds again. So that's how humans classified images into various categories. And the artists Nicolas Magritte and Maria Rostkowska thought about how the contemporary art world works, and thought about how you can come up with a concept for an artwork that you might want to execute. So they have this Twitter bot that reads the news and then generates various concepts for art, some of which might be very plausible, such as a narrative self-driving car protesting against artificial intelligence, or a robotic fridge collecting oddities about globalization. So I think, to me, certainly it would be very possible to see some of these works executed in an artistic sense. And as part of that project, they actually got humans to create some of these works. And those were displayed in some of the exhibitions. But yeah, they're less interesting than the actual concept of this work, I find. And then there are artists Julien Deswef and Matt Plummer-Fernandez who decided that they wanted to do something with Thingiverse, which is, I think it's a platform where you can upload various 3D models and then, eventually kind of print stuff. And they created a bot that creates random mashups of various items found on this Thingiverse. So these are some of the 3D models you can find on Thingiverse. And this is an example of a mashup. So it's an open Overlord nozzle. You can see it's a weird object that might not make sense. And yeah, there are some other examples. But to me, what was quite interesting was the public reaction, because the public was not sure whether it was a bot that was creating these images or models, or whether it was an actual human that had quite an interesting artistic vision. And there were a lot of discussions about whether this was spam or whether it was genuinely an artwork, and others were just happy that it helped with some of their work. And so this resulted in an exhibition in the Netherlands sometime last year, and people had to vote whether the work was art or spam. And it was, art got a lot more votes, but then again, maybe that's the kind of people you'd expect to see at an art gallery. And if you want to see some more work on the topic, then there's a gallery I curated for NIPS workshop I organized last year on machine learning for creativity and design. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can contact me.
Yeah, sure. Since nobody else was asking, just curious to know which of the pieces you showed, or maybe something you haven't shown even, you find the most interesting yourself, and why?
This is a good question. So I guess in terms of in terms of approaching the theme of, I guess, AI and art, or looking at what you kind of can change or incorporate in that, I find Anna Riddler's work quite interesting, because she's one of the few artists who have really thought about the data set kind of as a variable, and she worked hard to make her own data set, and then kind of re-engaged with the film and with the model to create various versions. And I guess otherwise I really liked the last work I showed, so the Thingiverse bots, because I think it raised one of the questions that we will probably see much more often, as to kind of what happens when this technology kind of runs wild in an environment where we might not expect it, where we might not expect to find it. So those are my two favorite pieces.
The AIs that do stuff with existing art, what is art is, an infinite question you can go round and round and round
yes.
on. There are examples in what you showed of derivative art, of completely unique art. So I love the Nozzle as well. But that's a spectrum. The playing around with existing art doesn't seem to me to be as interesting as say the open Overlord Nozzle, which, by the way, I was about to tell everyone that's going to be my password, but no, that's probably not a good idea. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, it depends. Yeah, as you say, what you define as art. But for example, the open Nozzle, that is also derivative, right? Because it comes out from two objects that were mashed together, and they just came out as a 3D model rather than a 2D image.
So that's food for thought. I'm interested about the story that you have about the artist who learned more about her own style, or perhaps her own perception, through seeing what the AI produced as a result.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that? Because this seems like a more generally applicable system.
Can I say more about that? So I don't think she had a particular kind of logic or rationale to learn something from her drawings. She just wanted to see how a model would interpret her work, and how it would then reconstruct, and what generalizations it would make. And I guess the observations I heard from her was what I said about kind of the way she draws things, so the eyes and the eyebrows, or kind of the way she places objects into an image, or she forgets about them. And I think that really kind of depends on what your own data set is like, and the results can be kind of very different depending on what you do. So if you have the patience to make hundreds of drawings from a short film or something like that, then you could see what it could teach you about your own style. But you would need to do as many drawings as possible if you want a bigger data set and better results. Or otherwise, one thing I didn't mention about Anna's work was that she did say that at certain parts of the process she made more drawings than at others, just as because her time is finite. And when she had fewer drawings for a particular segment, the results came out more blurry. So you might have noticed that in the video that some sections appeared better reconstructed or animated than others.
With the AI that was recreating Blade Runner from scratch, I wondered if you knew how that functioned, how it differed from just say a compression algorithm, what it was doing exactly, because I don't think I quite got it.
So it's a variational autoencoder. I'm not a technical expert, so if you know about deep learning, I would suggest you look up Terry Broad's article on autoencoding Blade Runner, and then he explains a little bit about the process, because I think he actually came up with this particular algorithm and then presented it at one of the SIGGRAPH conferences later.
Hi. Thanks. I have the impression that the stuff you showed, it was all artists working with software, basically. Is that? And I'm wondering if you can think of any examples of people doing stuff more with hardware.
More with hardware. Yeah, it's not really something I look at, to be honest.
So, no for the moment.
No, not that I can immediately think of. I mean, there are other artists, maybe designers, who use kind of AI-based methods or robots with computer vision that create like 3D stuff, but in terms of kind of hardware, it's not really an area I look at. Oh, but if you mean like, or do you mean like robots as well? Sorry.
I kind of meant that I had the feeling that most of the people you're showing were kind of using existing hardware, maybe existing algorithms, and it was very much a software kind of process where they were taking images or processing images.
Yeah, sure.
In the last one, it was 3D files they were processing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it was very much about software doing stuff. I was just kind of wondering if you can think of any examples of people actually building some AI hardware in the art context.
I mean, there are examples of robots, if that is kind of what you're looking at. Or I'm just less of a hardware person.
No, that's cool. So maybe not.
Maybe not. Or at least not that I'm aware of.
I'm not aware of.
Okay.
But
cool.
There was a question back here first.
I understand. This is really, really interesting. And this is what has been done so far. So I'd like to understand what's your personal view of what is going to happen in the future. So are we expecting to have a bot that owns an Instagram account and generates these, and in the future are going to go to Tate Modern to watch its exhibition? And it's completely independent, no one is running, no one is interacting with it directly?
So yeah, I guess in terms of bots owning Instagram accounts, there are certainly, recently there was an article in Business of Fashion about this, I think, computer-generated Instagram profile of this kind of influencer who was doing all the typical kind of stuff of, I don't know, going to fashion shows and taking pictures in holiday places, but she was like all computer-generated, and there was a human behind it. So yeah, it is possible that more humans decide to create various projects that somehow involve letting loose some of these kind of algorithms or the depictions into the wild, and then kind of playing with it. Because I think in general, this is something artists do like to do, whether they are activists or whether they want to highlight a particular kind of positive or negative critical issue that they see in the world. And I don't think that's kind of just related to AI. They also use other technologies for that.
Sorry. I'm just going to add on that because, you know, I recently, and this is recently as last weekend, I've discovered this guy called ShipPostBot 5000 in Twitter. And I found it fascinating because the thing is, he's generating memes out of the internet. Like just kind of creating images. You know, he makes text with images. And the funny thing is that it actually makes some kind of sense when you read that. So he's kind of creating that kind of, sorry, I'm not asking the question, just kind of adding this into the conversation. How something that just, it makes literally no, if you analyze it out of the memes world, it just makes no sense. But they're suddenly creating this kind of, I don't know, understanding of the internet in a way. And it makes somehow, by the nonsense of the absurd, like something that really makes complete sense of what the nature of, you know, IA and all these kind of things mean in a way. So I just found it fascinating. Just want to add that on top of.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of bots. Yeah, not all of them kind of do things that are AI related, but I think like on Twitter there are quite a lot of artists. And so I think the last project I mentioned by Julian and Matt Plummer-Fernandez. Matt Plummer-Fernandez, he is actually very much interested in, I think, other bots, and he did curate an exhibition on the art of bots at the Somerset House a couple of years ago, and he's got, I think, like various Twitter bots, so you could look him up if that was your area of interest.
Cool. I think we're wrapping up. One more question.
Hiya, that was really interesting. One of the things I didn't expect was that introspection thing with the film, you know, where it kind of reflected the style of the artist. That was really fascinating. I kind of got the impression that a lot of the things that you showed where like the human provides some input and then runs it through the model and it does its thing, which was really interesting, and the results were quite striking. But I was wondering, and I think the previous one of the previous questions touched on this, do you see a future where the human and the AI are a bit more sort of back and forth between each other, and there's a bit more collaboration? Like the human has the idea for what they want to do, but the AI is like does the drudge work or whatever. Do you think that's like going to happen in future?
Yeah, so I would say that, you know, arguably a lot of these works are the result of some kind of back and forth between the artist and the AI. So, for example, when the artist Mary Klingerman was generating these kind of images that were a cross between female selfies and male portraits, he would generate, I don't know, thousands of these images, and then he would need to figure out which ones he'd want to keep, or if you wanted to generate more images. So I think humans are very active in various kind of points in the creative process, and it's up to the human to decide whether they want to kind of focus on getting input from what exactly they should do as an artist, like in the case of this predictive art bot, or whether they want to get various kind of images or texts generated that they can then curate, or whether they want the algorithm to judge or kind of classify the image. So I think there are kind of various perspectives, and it depends on the human and his or her ability to work with the algorithm, because not all artists have the right technical skills to really make something technically interesting.